One click. An act so small it barely registered as movement. An act so immense it would reshape his life and thousands of others waiting in the same darkness, longing for permission to speak. The weight of their laughter crushed him against the lockers as they sneered, "You're too ugly to be seen." But what those bullies never realized was that their cruelest words would one day form the foundation of something extraordinary. Today, those same words reach millions, transformed into messages of strength and self-acceptance. This is the story of how one boy turned profound rejection into a movement that is reshaping the way we see ourselves. His journey begins in that suffocating moment when everything darkened except for something deep inside him that refused to surrender. The darkness before dawn, a life defined by others' cruelty. Every morning Alex felt like he was walking toward an execution. The school bus ride was a slow march, each stop adding more potential tormentors to the metal cage. He had mastered the art of invisibility. Shoulders hunched, eyes down, hoodie pulled tight despite the season. The hallways of Westridge High weren't passageways but battlegrounds, where classmates shoved him into lockers while teachers looked away. Look who decided to show his face today. The taunts were as routine as the morning bell. His asymmetrical features, the birthmark curving from his temple to cheekbone like an artist's stray brushstroke. These differences made him a perpetual target, a focal point for cruelty that shadowed him everywhere. By sophomore year, Alex had memorized every school corridor by its safe zones. Mr. Ramirez's biology lab during lunch, the third-floor bathroom, the narrow space behind the gym where he could breathe for 7 stolen minutes. The cafeteria he abandoned entirely, choosing instead to eat perched on closed toilet lids, timing each bite between the swing of the bathroom door. Home offered a fragile refuge, but technology blurred those boundaries. His bedroom became another war zone as notifications arrived in ruthless clusters, manipulated school photos, direct messages laced with feigned kindness that quickly turned to venom. His phone, once a source of connection, became an instrument of torture he couldn't bring himself to turn off. Frankenstein's reject, Two-Face's uglier brother, human birth defect. These words eroded his sense of self, carving wounds deeper than any bruise. Years later, these very phrases would title his most powerful content series, but at the time they were simply the vocabulary of his undoing. His grades crumbled alongside his spirit. B's slipped to C's, then D's, until incomplete assignments stacked up like silent accusations. His parents' concerned questions met a wall of "I'm fine" until they stopped asking, mistaking withdrawal for resilience. His 16th birthday revealed the depth of his isolation. 5 empty chairs around an untouched cake, eventually consumed by his little sister's friends. Without a digital presence, after purging his harassment-filled accounts, it was as if he had vanished from the world entirely. Nights became endless staring contests with the ceiling, tracing cracks that formed imaginary escape routes. His body bore the toll of his mind's torment, headaches, unexplainable stomach pain, weight loss that hollowed his cheeks. Science validates the suffering of the outcast. Chronic social rejection ignites the same neural pathways as physical pain. His cortisol levels remained dangerously high, wearing down his immune system. Constant hypervigilance drained his body, forcing him to live in a perpetual state of fight or flight. One cold November night, with rain whispering against the window, Alex opened a blank document. "To whoever finds this," he typed. His fingers moved instinctively, recording every wound, every name, every lunch spent in solitude. 3 hours and 17 pages later, without planning, he activated his laptop's video function. The words from his suicide note became raw testimony. His voice wavered and steadied as he spoke his pain aloud. When he finished, he stared at the completed video. Post. The button glowed on his screen. His trembling hand hovered over the mouse. That single click could mark his final surrender, or his first act of defiance. The first whisper, finding voice in vulnerability. That single click sent his anguish into the digital void, where most confessions fade unnoticed. But Alex's vulnerability struck a nerve in the algorithm in ways no one predicted. The internet, the very weapon used to destroy him, was about to become his sanctuary. For 3 excruciating hours, he lay on his bed staring at the ceiling, his phone face down on his nightstand like a ticking bomb. He imagined the backlash forming, the mocking comments brewing, the fresh ammunition he had willingly handed to his tormentors. When he finally found the courage to check, his hands trembled so violently he dropped his phone twice before unlocking the screen. The notification count made his breath hitch. 17 comments, 32 likes, 4 shares. His thumb hovered over the app icon, a part of him desperate to delete everything and disappear. But something deeper pulled him forward. The first comment appeared. "I've never heard someone describe exactly what I feel every day. Thank you for making me feel less alone." Alex blinked, scrolled. Another. "This is me at my school too. How do you survive it?" Not mockery, not cruelty, recognition. In his dim bedroom, illuminated only by the blue light of his screen, Alex's face crumpled with a strange relief. Perhaps for the first time he was truly seen. His 17-minute video lacked the polished aesthetics that dominated social media. His acne was visible, his asymmetrical features unfiltered. His voice cracked when he spoke of finding a dead rat in his locker. Like an unvarnished painting revealing more truth than a perfect photograph, his rawness created something rare. Authentic humanity. By morning, the view count reached 300. A week later, 2,000. He started posting more, unscripted thoughts captured between classes, late-night reflections recorded in whispers. Each upload strengthened his voice. "I'm keeping it real," he said in his third video, gesturing to the crack in the wall behind him. "This has been here since I was 9. I used to think broken things needed to be hidden. Now I think maybe they just need to be acknowledged." That line, unplanned, became his first viral quote. While his following remained modest, just under 5,000 by the month's end, their engagement ran deeper than simple scrolling. Alex developed a new language, one that embraced rather than concealed his differences. "My left eye sits lower than my right. That's just a fact," he said in one video. "Facts aren't the problem. It's the stories we attach to them. The story is in my face is mine." His dead phone was just the beginning. Alex stared at the black screen, a brief respite from the relentless flood of notifications. Fame hadn't arrived with celebration. It had crashed into his life like a tidal wave, sweeping away the foundations of his carefully constructed isolation. The morning after his phone died, he borrowed his mother's laptop and logged in. The numbers stunned him. 250,000 followers, thousands of messages, and emails from major media outlets. The world had ignored his suffering until it became something consumable. "I didn't know how to be a person people recognized," Alex later admitted. "I had spent years trying to be invisible, and suddenly strangers were stopping me at the grocery store, crying, telling me I'd saved their lives." His first public encounter happened at a coffee shop. A girl approached, hands shaking, eyes filled with tears. "You made me feel like maybe I deserved to exist," she whispered before walking away. Alex stood frozen, his coffee growing cold. The weight of carrying other people's hopes settled heavily on his shoulders. Visibility attracted unexpected vultures. A brand representative offered $5,000 for him to mention their skincare line designed for imperfect skin. A talent agency promised to maximize his trauma narrative for optimal platform growth. Their words made him nauseous. His features, once a source of pain, had become marketable assets. His mother noticed him withdrawing again, but differently this time. "It's like he traded one prison for another," she confided. "Before, he was trapped by their hatred. Now he's trapped by their expectations." The algorithm rewarded vulnerability, but only the kind that fed an audience's appetite for pain. When Alex posted about progress and healing, engagement dropped. Some accused him of not being authentic anymore. It was as if people only valued his suffering, not his growth. Then came an unexpected message from Jason Bennett, one of his former tormentors. The apology teetered between justification and regret. 3 more followed from different classmates, each performing varying degrees of contrition. But it was Michael's message that left Alex paralyzed. "What I did to you was cruel and unforgivable. I've watched every video. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that you've changed at least one of the people who hurt you." A week later, Michael asked, "Would you consider letting me apologize publicly? Maybe it would help other bullies see what they're doing before it's too late." For the first time, the power had shifted. Alex had control over the narrative. He could expose Michael, forgive him, or ignore him, choices he had never been given before. "I realized that whatever I chose would send a message about justice, forgiveness, and healing," he later reflected. During this time, Alex found solace in other creators who had turned pain into purpose. Their late-night calls became sacred spaces where they discussed the weight of their platforms, the guilt of monetizing trauma, and the pressure to always be in recovery. It was in these conversations that Alex realized something crucial. His story wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. Those late-night conversations with fellow creators became Alex's sanctuary, a space where the weight of visibility was understood. While many influencers remained trapped in the cycle of emotional exposure, Alex was quietly redefining his purpose. He had spent months pouring his pain into videos, but now a new question emerged. What if vulnerability wasn't just something to be consumed, but something to be taught? 8 months into his journey, he launched a 5-part video series titled Reclaiming Your Reflection. The series introduced concepts like feature ownership and narrative disruption, tools designed to help others reclaim their self-worth. One young woman, who had been mocked for her prominent nose, used Alex's techniques to challenge herself, photographing her profile from angles she once avoided, then turning those images into an art series celebrating her silhouette. "The parts of yourself they used as weapons are actually your greatest armor," became one of Alex's most shared phrases. It appeared on shirts, in journal entries, even as tattoos inked onto skin. Another key idea, reflective identity, challenged people to examine how much of their self-image was merely a reflection of other people's opinions. But the shift away from raw confession sparked resistance. Some longtime followers missed his earlier unfiltered emotion. "I feel like you're turning into another self-help influencer," one wrote. Others accused him of losing his authenticity. Alex addressed their concerns head-on in a candid video, filmed in the same dimly lit bedroom where his journey had started. "I'm not moving away from my pain," he said, his voice steady. "I'm refusing to let it remain shapeless. My hurt deserves structure. Your hurt deserves structure. Otherwise, we're just drowning in feelings without lifelines." This philosophy became the foundation for his most ambitious project, Transformation Frameworks, an interactive workshop co-developed with Dr. Eliza Chen, a clinical psychologist specializing in appearance-related trauma. Some critics accused him of offering unlicensed therapy. He clarified, "I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to diagnose or treat. I'm offering navigation tools from someone who's walked similar terrain." His signature 3-step process, acknowledge, source, reclaim, helped thousands confront their deepest insecurities. But his most profound innovation came in the form of reflection circles, moderated community spaces where participants could share experiences, free from judgment or comparison. Unlike social media, where pain often turned into spectacle, these spaces nurtured real healing. 9 months later, Alex hosted a 4-hour live stream featuring people who had used his frameworks to reclaim themselves. These weren't just stories of survival, they were stories of transformation. As his community flourished, an unexpected paradox emerged. The very features that had made Alex a target were now becoming his most recognizable assets. His asymmetrical smile was stylized in fan art. His distinctive profile appeared on merchandise. But behind the public embrace lay a private struggle. How could he teach self-acceptance when he still flinched at his own reflection? On screen, thousands called him inspiring, but alone in front of his mirror, he still saw the same boy who had once hunched his shoulders and hidden in bathroom stalls. "I'd read comments calling me handsome or brave," he admitted in an unfiltered live stream, "and I'd literally look around my empty room wondering who they were talking about." This disconnect showed up in subtle ways. During video edits, he found himself cropping out frames that highlighted his jawline asymmetry, only to force himself to restore them. His designer, May, noticed this pattern and proposed something radical, incorporating his features into his brand identity. The logo she created featured a stylized outline of his face, the exact angle he'd once avoided, rendered in his signature blue. "It was like watching someone build a monument to a version of me I was still learning to recognize," he later wrote. Success hadn't erased the scars of rejection. Panic attacks still seized him before public appearances. Insomnia kept him scrolling through comments at 3 a.m. With his therapist, he developed grounding rituals, a 10-minute meditation on physical presence, a small stone to hold before speaking, a 24-hour digital detox after releasing vulnerable content. At his first TEDx talk, these rituals saved him. As he stepped onto the stage, the old impulse to hide gripped him. He knew exactly how to position himself so his bad side remained unseen. Instead, he reached into his pocket, grasped his grounding stone, and rotated deliberately so the full symmetry of his face was visible to the audience. "I spent years perfecting the art of selective visibility," he began. "I could tell you exactly which angles made me look most normal. I became an expert at hiding in plain sight. The audience's silence wasn't the silence of rejection. It was the silence of recognition." 3 days later, a message arrived from a 14-year-old boy. "I had the pills in my hand when YouTube suggested your video. I watched the whole thing before deciding. Then I put them away and woke up my mom. Thank you for existing visibly. I'm going to try." When his tears finally subsided, Alex found himself standing in front of his mirror, not searching for flaws, not adjusting his posture, just looking. For the first time, the face staring back wasn't a monster. It wasn't a hero. It was simply him. Between uploads and messages, Alex often returns to where it all began, tracing his reflection in the darkened screen. Once he avoided mirrors. Now his journey has carved something entirely new. What he created wasn't just content, it was a sanctuary, built from the very words once used to break him. His impact isn't measured in views or followers, but in messages like Priya's. "Your video on rejection gave me the courage to apply for the promotion I got yesterday." This is the alchemy of true influence, not just being seen, but truly seeing others. Through daily practices of vulnerability, Alex has become the mirror he never had, reflecting back possibilities. The boy who once couldn't bear his own reflection now exists in the thousands who found their way through his light.